On the broadcast tonight, tit-for-tat. North Korea does not have the slightest bit of respect, says the South Korean government, in its response to the North blistering personal attack on President Park Geun-hye earlier in the day. Now, Washington indicates that it will support Tokyo in its aim to change its constitution and lift its self-imposed ban on collective defense. What this means for the other players in the region, we'll have an analysis. And Samsung Electronics is on track for a second consecutive year of record earnings with projections of a record-breaking third quarter operating profit of roughly $9.3 billion. This is Early Edition at 6. It is 5 a.m. in Washington, 5 p.m. in Bali, and 6 on a Friday evening here in Seoul. Welcome to Early Edition at 6. I'm Conn-young.
And I'm Daniel Che. Thank you for joining us. We begin with some big words exchanged between the two Koreas.
South Korea says North Korea's latest verbal attack on President Park Geun-hye is extremely regrettable. In a statement released Friday afternoon, Seoul's Unification Ministry said there has been no case in which a country has insulted another head of state with such offensive words, classifying the act as both unreasonable and rude. Earlier this morning, North Korea's National Defense Commission lashed out at President Park for saying that the North pushed to simultaneously develop its nuclear capabilities and the economy is doomed for failure. Now, the North statement referred to President Park by name and said her goal of joining forces with foreign powers to denuclearize the North will ultimately fail. The South Korean leader, during an Armed Forces Day ceremony earlier this week, called on Pyongyang to give up its nuclear program while reiterating Seoul's commitment to developing a strong defense capability against North Korea. Meanwhile, U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry has taken a softer stance towards North Korea, assuring Pyongyang that Washington is not seeking a regime change in North Korea. Speaking to reporters in Tokyo Thursday, Kerry said the U.S. is ready to discuss North Korea's concerns about its security if it shows, through actions, its willingness towards denuclearization. Arirang News' Kim Hyun-bin reports.
Secretary of State Kerry has said the U.S. is willing to negotiate a non-aggression agreement with North Korea if the reclusive nation is serious about ending its nuclear weapons program. Speaking at a joint press conference in Tokyo Thursday, Kerry said the U.S. was prepared to have a peaceful relationship with North Korea and was not engaged in regime change. He also said Washington would be willing to sign a non-aggression agreement if Pyongyang denuclearizes and engages in legitimate negotiations to achieve that end. The U.S. has long maintained that North Korea needs to show its seriousness with actions, not rhetoric. But Kerry was making a conciliatory gesture by addressing North Korea's claim that its nuclear program is aimed at countering what it describes as threats of a U.S. attack. Kerry, a longtime U.S. senator who has dealt mostly with foreign affairs, is known to be an advocate for a diplomatic solution to the North Korean nuclear issue. Recently, Pyongyang offered to resume talks with Washington, but U.S. officials turned it down, questioning the regime's intentions. Kerry also mentioned that China has been an important partner in dealing with the North Korea issue. China has been on the forefront of efforts to reopen the long-stalled six-party talks regarding Pyongyang's nuclear program, which includes South Korea, Japan, and Russia. Kim Hyun-bin, Arirang News.
The United States and Japan have agreed to expand their security alliance by rewriting their defense cooperation guidelines, which are expected to include Washington's support for Tokyo's right to collective self-defense. While China's state-run media almost immediately reacted to the plan with concern, warning that this puts the alliance on a dangerous path. Kim Ji-yeon reports.
The United States and Japan agreed to broaden their security alliance when their foreign and defense ministers met in Tokyo on Thursday. After the meeting, the ministers issued a joint statement calling for the construction of a new missile defense radar system in Japan and the deployment of U.S. drone aircraft. In particular, the agreement implies U.S. support for the exercise of Japan's right to collective self-defense. Prime Minister Shinzo Abe has previously proposed changing the interpretation of the nation's constitution to allow Japan to launch a counterattack if an ally is attacked. Meanwhile, China's state-run Xinhua news agency said that the new security alliance between the U.S. and Japan is heading down a, quote, dangerous path. In the editorial, the agency said that the strengthened military alliance between the two countries will endanger the peace and security of the Asia-Pacific region and the world. U.S. Secretary of Defense Chuck Hagel reiterated on Thursday that the disputed islands in the East China Sea, called Senkaku in Japan and Diaoyu in China, are administered by Japan and would therefore be covered by the U.S.-Japan Security Treaty. This means that the U.S. could aid Japanese forces if the disputed islands came under attack.
The United States treaty obligations to Japan. We strongly oppose any unilateral coercive action that seeks to undermine Japan's administrative control.
The two nations agreed to complete drawing up a new defense guideline in 2014. Kim Jeon, Arirang News.
President Park Geun-hye embarks on an 8-day trip to Indonesia and Brunei on Sunday, where she is planning to conduct a bit of sales diplomacy on behalf of Korea Inc. She is scheduled to attend the APEC and ASEAN Plus 3 summits and conduct a state visit to Indonesia. Our Jin-ju has the details.
President Park's trip to the Southeast Asian region will be dominated by a central theme: sales diplomacy. In meetings with leaders of the 21 APEC member countries and 10 ASEAN member states during her stay in Indonesia and Brunei, President Park aims to boost her policy goals of economic revitalization and job creation through diplomatic exchange. In a keynote speech at a CEO summit that she will give upon her arrival in Bali on Sunday, the president is expected to introduce the Korean government's key economic policies and its efforts to ease regulations to attract foreign investment. During the Korea-ASEAN summit scheduled for Wednesday in Bandar Seri Begawan, Brunei, President Park and the leaders of the ASEAN member countries will discuss ways to further strengthen their economic cooperation. ASEAN has become Korea's key economic partner over the years, as it is the second largest market in bilateral trade for Korea and the biggest market for Korean investment. President Park's state visit to Indonesia also falls in line with her economic emphasis on the ASEAN region, which has emerged as a so-called post-BRICS bloc. Indonesia's population and economy are the biggest among the ASEAN member nations, which is why President Park chose it as the next destination for her sales diplomacy pitch following Vietnam last month. She is scheduled to hold a bilateral summit with Indonesian President Susilo Bambang Yudhoyono next Saturday, when she will seek ways to strengthen and expand the two countries' cooperation in the industries of energy, the environment, and forestry. One of her key goals during her state visit to Jakarta is securing Indonesian government support for Korean companies seeking to participate in major national projects, such as the construction of Sunda Strait Bridge and Soekarno-Hatta Airport Railway. Jin-ju, Arirang News.
A prolonged political scandal has taken a new turn in recent days. Prosecutors investigating the missing 2007 Inter-Korean Summit transcript will summon dozens of late former President Roh Moo-hyun's key aides from Monday. Earlier this week, the prosecution concluded that the transcript does not exist at the National Archives. Our political correspondent Kim Hyun-ji reports.
Former Presidential Secretary for Security Affairs Cho Myung-gyun attended the 2007 Inter-Korean Summit and recorded the conversation between South Korean President Roh Moo-hyun and then North Korean leader Kim Jong-il. Cho reportedly told prosecutors in February that President Roh asked him to delete the summit minutes from the EG-1 electronic archive system used at the presidential office at the time. He added that Roh had wanted to transfer the transcript to the National Intelligence Service so the next administration could easily access it. But he didn't want it going to the National Archives, where records remain confidential for up to 30 years. Earlier this week, prosecutors said they discovered traces of the original transcript that had been registered but deleted from a duplicate of the EG-1 system President Roh took with him. However, prosecutors also found an edited version of the transcript saved in the EG1 duplicate, which they say is virtually identical to the copy the National Intelligence Service has. From next Monday, prosecutors will summon and question President No's former aides on why the transcript had not been transferred to the Central Archives, but an edited transcript was transferred to the spy agency. Lawmaker Moon Jae-in of the main opposition Democratic Party, who served as President No's chief of staff, could also be summoned. In June, the spy agency disclosed its version of the summit transcript, stoking political row over whether President No had made remarks about nullifying the Northern Limit Line, a western sea border with North Korea, during his talks with Kim Jong-il. Moon at the time demanded they look at the transcript kept at the National Archives and vowed to stake his political life on President No never having made such comments. Kim Hyun-ji, Arirang News.
Digging deeper, getting to the bottom of stories that impact your life.
Plans to visit experts.
Talking with you on air and online. Connecting you with heroes and experts to help you understand the world's most pressing issues. News and current affairs at its best with Moon Geun-hye and Daniel Che on Early Edition at 6.
Now shifting gears to the economy, Korea's import prices rose by 2 points. Well, Korea's tech giant Samsung Electronics is on track to post its second consecutive year of record earnings, with a third quarter operating profit projected to hit roughly $9.5 billion. Arirang's Hwang Ji-hye has this report.
The world's top maker of smartphones, Samsung Electronics has beaten market expectations. Releasing its provisional results, the tech giant said on Friday that its operating profit was a record 10.1 trillion won, or roughly $9.5 billion in the third quarter of this year. This is a 25% rise from the same period a year ago. Market researcher FN Guide said late last month, corporate analysts at brokerage houses predicted an average of just over $9.2 billion for the third quarter profit. The company's sales in the July to September period also hit a record $55 billion, up 13% from a year earlier. While Samsung Electronics did not give breakdowns for each of its business units, experts say it was, as usual, the better-than-expected sales of the mobile business that led to the record quarterly profit. The profits from the mobile business took up over 60% of the company's overall profit in the second quarter of this year. Analysts add that a rebound in memory chip prices has also helped boost profits. Some market watchers say, however, that Samsung's earnings for the fourth quarter of this year could fall in view of its tight competition with Apple, which has released a new line of handsets at lower prices recently. Hwang Ji-hye, Arirang News.
Turning now to one of the worst disasters ever witnessed in the busy Mediterranean passage between Africa and Europe. Recovery efforts have resumed off southern Italy after a boat carrying about 500 African migrants sank off the island of Lampedusa. At least 113 bodies have now been recovered, and some 200 of those on board are still unaccounted for. Son Jung-in reports.
A ship heading toward the Italian island of Lampedusa sank just 1 kilometer offshore on Thursday. The ship was carrying a group of African migrants from Tripoli seeking a better life in Europe. Italian officials say at least 130 people have died and scores more are missing after the overcrowded fishing boat caught fire following an engine failure and sank. Around 500 people were believed to be on board, including 30 children and 3 pregnant women.
Once the fire started, there was a concern about the boat sinking, and everyone moved to one side, causing the boat to go down. And hundreds of people on board went into the water.
The disaster happened just 4 days after 13 people drowned off eastern Sicily when a ship carrying around 450 Syrians ran aground, forcing some 200 people on board to swim to the coast. The rising global phenomenon of people from Africa and the Middle East trying to reach Europe via Italy is a growing concern, as most of the ships are often dangerously overcrowded. Pope Francis offered his condolences to the victims and their families and said he felt great pain for the many victims of the latest tragic shipwreck. He called on international organizations to come up with a solution to help prospective migrants find safer places to stay. 손정인, Arirang News.
Switching to a different story, the skies of Seoul are going to light up on Saturday thanks to the Seoul International Fireworks Festival. Around 1 million people are expected to gather for this year's event in Yeouido, and organizers suggest that watchers show up well in advance of the 7 p.m. starting time and use public transportation. Roads near the festival will be restricted several hours before, during, and after the show, from the intersection of the Mapo Bridge near Yeouinaru Station to the festival site.
Well, the biggest film festival in Korea and arguably the most recognized and celebrated film festival in Asia has begun. And it's not just a place for film buffs to spoil themselves with a great variety of movies from around the world.
That's right. It also serves as an important launch pad for many who are looking to get their foot in the door of the film industry. To tell us more about the ins and outs of this year's Busan International Film Festival, we connect to film critic Piers Conrad, who is standing by in Busan Cinema Center at the heart of the action.
Hello, Piers, and thank you for joining us today. I'm going to start with the big question first. Is Busan the Cannes of Asia?
Well, thanks for having me back. You know, it's a huge festival. People have been calling it the Cannes of Asia for a few years now. It's certainly the biggest festival in Korea. People say it's the biggest in Asia, and when you get here and there's all the pomp and circumstance, all the stars are out in their dazzling gowns on the red carpets. There's over 300 movies on the program, and looking at the way the shifting current of cinema coming towards the east, everything is certainly happening in Busan. It's a very exciting festival. It's definitely the Cannes of Asia. Is it anywhere near as big as Cannes? I wouldn't quite go so far, but the years coming ahead, who knows what will bring.
Okay, Piers, more exciting things that's happening in Busan is that we understand 2 star actors are set to make their directorial debut in Busan. So do we have a Ron Howard or a Mel Gibson in the making, Piers?
Well, only time will tell. You know, it's a funny thing because this seems to be kind of a trend that's been happening now in Busan. Last year, one of the biggest Korean actors, Yoo Ji-tae, who may be well known to viewers from films like Old Boy, debuted of his film My Ratsuma, and that was very well received. I enjoyed it very much myself. This year we have 2. We have arguably one of the biggest stars in the country right now. Ha Jung-woo is a very well-known, charismatic lead from films. This year he was in The Terror Live and he was in The Berlin File, both very popular thrillers. So he's going behind the camera for his very first film, which he scripted and he made himself. It was on a relatively small budget, he made it in a quick time. It seems like kind of a fun film. It's set in an airplane. A pop star is traveling back from Japan, and a typhoon happens, and they're worried that the plane is going to crash. So it's kind of an action comedy thriller that's happening up in a mile high in the air. The second film is called Top Star. It's from the actor Park Geun-hye is making his directorial debut. So people are very curious to see how both of these films will fare, and if we do indeed have successful transitions, actors going behind the camera.
Now, Piers, this time around, I understand that instead of focusing as much on Korean films, it actually focused on broadening the Asian cinema scene. How is that doing so?
Well, the thing with Busan is there's an enormous program. Countries from all around the world. Of course, there's always been a lot of Korean films, a decent amount of Japanese films, and lots of European and American films. But up until now, while there have been many films from across Asia, there has been kind of a smaller representation from Southeast Asian countries or lesser-known countries even further afoot. So now they seem to have made a conscious effort to be more inclusive in Asia, and they've got this very exciting program this year. We opened with the film Vara, a Blessing, which is actually a Bhutanese film, and there's even a program on Asian lesser-known countries. Countries featured in this program include Kazakhstan and Tajikistan and Kyrgyzstan. So these are countries that you don't normally see films from. So it's very exciting to discover new things. And plenty of films from the Philippines and Thailand and Taiwan. A lot of films that people are buzzing about. Films that have been seen at Venice and Toronto recently. So it's a really broad, eclectic program, and you have to hand it to the programming team for having really gone all out to discover cinema from all corners of the earth.
Okay, I believe it's important to honor the pioneers in the industry, and I understand one of the most respected filmmakers in Korea, Im Kwon-taek, will have a very special segment dedicated to him, and he will be honored. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Certainly, Im Kwon-taek is known to many. He is the godfather of the Korean film industry. He's made 101 films, which is just a remarkable achievement. He's been a very prolific, busy director since the 60s. He has reinvented himself as well as the industry as a whole, time and time again. He was making all these commercial films in the 60s and 70s, making them pretty quickly. In the 80s, he made the first movies that ended up on the international festival circuit, films like Mandara or The Surrogate Woman, which the star of which, Kang So-young, won an award for Best Actress in the Venice Film Festival in the 80s. That was a big new thing for a Korean film, winning an award at a big event like that. And in the 90s, he made Seopyeonjae, which was the first film to cross 1 million viewers in Korea, and is considered by many to be the greatest Korean film ever made. And so now he's still working. He's all the time. He's evident in the Korean film industry. And even today, there was a press conference announcing his 102nd film, which will go into production very soon. So it's really remarkable that he's had this huge influence on the industry. The retrospective this year, 70 films in the retrospective. Now, not all of those are showing during the festival. Many were shown in the weeks leading up to the festival here in Busan. So to have 70 films is pretty incredible. And another exciting thing is that a lot of these films are being introduced by some of the other luminaries of the Korean film industry, such as directors Lee Chang-dong and Roo Sung-won and Bong Joon-ho. So these all sound, it's obviously great films introduced by really interesting people who probably have some great insights on them. It's a great retrospective, and I, for one, hope that I'll get to catch a few of the films in the lineup.
All right, thank you, Pierce, for taking us beyond the velvet rope and highlighting the significance of the Busan International Film Festival.
I hope you have fun for the rest of the remainder of the celebrations, and we hope to see you right back here in Seoul real soon. It's time for a check on the weather conditions with our Kim Bo-kyung at the Weather Center. Hello, Bo-kyung. Today was another gorgeous day throughout the country.
Yes, and tomorrow should be another gorgeous day, which should be perfect for those of you who are planning to attend the Busan International Film Festival and for those who are going out to watch the Seoul International Fireworks Festival.
Well, that's definitely nice to hear, but I hear that the rain is on our way as well.
Yes, Conn-young, we should have 2 different weather days over the weekend. Now, tomorrow should be another bright and sunny day. However, there should be showers on Jeju Island starting late at night, and the showers are expected to gradually spread to the south coast regions and Gangwon province on Sunday. So Sunday should be a cloudy day for most parts of the country. Now, taking a closer look at tomorrow's forecast, Seoul should make it to 28 degrees. Meanwhile, Gwangju and Busan should both hit 27. Moving on to other regions. Daejeon and Jeju should both make it to 24 and 26 degrees respectively. Meanwhile, Mangkeumgang peaks at 17. As the big temperature gap between the days and nights should continue, please make sure to keep yourself warm. That's all I have for you this hour, but join me for another update after 8.
Thank you for that, Bo-kyung. And that's all from us for this hour. Thank you for watching. This has been Daniel Choi.
And I'm Conn-young. Thank you as always for being here with us. I hope you have a wonderful weekend, and we'll see you right back here same time Monday evening. Good night.